Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Live and Sport Podcast. And anyone who's been listening or watching the recent episodes knows that we are on a Central Coast Mariners kick, whether they are current players, former players, academy players in general. And we've got another special guest, a former Mariners player, Fabio Ferreira. I probably butchered saying that, so I apologize. Thank you for joining me. And how's your weekend been?
Hi guys, thanks for having me on the show. The weekend's been good, just pretty relaxing actually, can't complain.
Nice.
And yeah, just having some time now doing this interview.
Yeah, nice. So obviously, sure, we'll talk about your time at the Mariners, but there's a massive journey that got you to the Mariners before that. So let's get started with your grassroots football over in Portugal with Portugal Sporting CP. What was it like, first of all, growing up in Portugal and playing football in such a football dominated nation?
Yeah, well, I started my the first year I started playing was a local club
Mm-hmm.
in where I live, local it's called Seixal.
Yep,
And
Seychelles.
then
Yep.
I after that year, I obviously signed for Sporting Lisbon, and I was for 3 years, which was obviously as a young player, academy wise in Portugal, it's top two, top three.
Yep.
So
So
it
like
was
the NPL equivalent here, sort of thing.
no Sporting Lisbon is like first division, is like top three club in Portugal.
Oh,
But
okay, okay,
yeah,
wow.
but as a young player, like it's a good academy, like
Yeah,
it's a very strong academy. So I was fortunate enough to sign and go play for them as a kid.
yeah,
And obviously that's where I started, and
yeah.
I enjoyed a lot when I was there. But obviously that's ages ago,
Oh, oh, it is. It is.
I'll bring back that time.
Well, from Sporting Lisbon, you went to Chelsea, but not without a bit of controversy, from what I could dig up, in the sense of not necessarily you in particular, but the club was a
Yeah.
bit annoyed in the sense of they made a complaint to FIFA that you went for an unauthorized, or whatever the term was at the time, um, training session sort of thing at Chelsea. Can you tell me about that sort of stuff?
Yeah, so obviously it was at the time was a big misunderstanding,
Okay.
and Sporting Lisbon was very upset because they what happened was Chelsea wanted to sign me,
Mm-hmm.
and at the time I didn't have a professional contract with Sporting Lisbon.
Okay, so therefore
So
you were technically not contractually
yeah,
obligated. Okay.
so I just I end up like going to England to see the facilities and
Yep, to
everything
tour
before
that.
I
Yep.
moved. And they got very upset, thinking that I went there to train and everything
Oh.
else. So
So it was more to get a tour of the facilities and see the area,
yeah,
not actually train, but they
yeah, no,
as yeah.
I just went there to see before I signed the facilities and everything else. And Sporting Lisbon thought I went for training, and then obviously they got very upset and they wanted for Chelsea to pay a fee, but because I didn't have any contract, so they
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 didn't need to pay a
they
fee.
didn't want to pay. They didn't have to pay anything. So that was a big controversial. And then Sporting Lisbon went to FIFA
Yep.
and all that. So, but at the end, it got all resolved.
Yeah. Yep.
But it was a bit of in a when that happened, it was all very. It was a
Yeah.
bit like
It's
I
very
was in the
political by the
middle of
sounds.
something.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was in the middle of something that I didn't even do anything. So
Yeah, literally, you were like, "Yeah, cool. I don't have a professional contract. Sure, I'll have a squiz." Which, by the way,
that's
um,
right.
can you let us know? Obviously, at the time, obviously, facilities have changed over the time. At that time, which facilities were better? Given you had a tour of the Chelsea facilities.
Yeah, so obviously they're both fantastic. They're very like they got everything that
Yeah,
you need as a soccer player. Um, at the time, obviously Chelsea was more new
yep,
than Sporting Lisbon, but they're both very comparing to each other, very very similar.
yeah,
They got everything. They from pitches to gyms to pools to everything. So
yeah.
really, it's hard to put on
Like,
what's
like
better
the
or
only
not.
difference would be it's in a different country,
That's
sort of
right.
thing. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. That's absolutely right.
Fair enough. And well, obviously, you did end up making the move to Chelsea. And what was that like, going from your hometown, well, not your hometown, but your home country, Portugal, over to England?
Yeah. Well. in the beginning, obviously, it was hard. I didn't speak any English, and obviously being away from the family and everything. But it was a great experience. I went there when I was 16, so then I spent 4 years there,
Hmm.
and obviously I enjoyed a lot. And thinking back now, that it was a great experience, and I've grown a lot when I was there as a person, as a player,
Like
and
you definitely wouldn't change the decision to go over there.
no, no. If it was today, I'll do the same. Because it was really, yeah, the best decision I could have made at the time.
Oh, absolutely. And then obviously you went on loan to Oldham Athletic, obviously a club in the UK. What was it like going from Chelsea with, all the bells and whistles to Oldham Athletic, who may not necessarily have had the best facilities compared to Chelsea?
Yeah, I went there as a on loan. But then unfortunately I got injuries
Oh,
like
that's
pretty
no
much
good.
as I got there, so I didn't even end up playing for them.
Wow.
Yeah, because so then I just went back to Chelsea,
Yep.
and then I got injured, and that's really what happened at the time. I didn't even have the chance, and then yeah,
Yeah,
it came to
geez.
an end of the contract with Chelsea, and then they didn't want to renew, and then I just ended up leaving.
No, that's fair enough. Obviously you did play at some other clubs in between from Oldham and before you got to Australia, but we've spoken a bit about your time in Portugal and England, so now's the time to talk about your time in Australia. Your first club, well, I mean, from what I was able to Google, it may be wrong, was Dulwich Hill.
Yeah.
What was it like moving, first of all the way over to the other side of the world to Australia? The weather differences, the entire differences. What was that like? And then playing football in Australia was a totally different style of football.
Yeah, so the story is I came here because I didn't want to come here to play, because what happened is when I left Chelsea, then I went to Portugal to play 2 seasons. I was in Portugal in the second
Hmm.
division
Was
playing
that
for,
with Maurice or
yeah, Esmoril and
Sertanense?
then Sertanense, yeah. So that was like lower second division.
Yep.
And like it got to a stage that I just, I kind of lost the interest and lost the love for soccer, and I was a bit like so I
Hmm.
actually decided to come to Australia because I have family here in Australia,
Okay.
and I decided, what, I'm just gonna go change lifestyle, just go there and not even worry about soccer. So
Yep.
I didn't have soccer in my mind. And then I got here, and I was working at the coffee shop that my uncle, they own. And I was just playing for Dali Chill for some fun, just
Yep.
play around and stuff. I wasn't even thinking of anything. But and then
You got picked up by Adelaide
I got,
United.
yeah, that's right. And then I got picked up, and then that's when I really started again loving soccer and enjoying myself. So
So Australia sort of helped reinvigorate and reignite the love
that's
of
right.
football.
Absolutely, yeah. That's because for me, I was, I had enough. But
You're just
then
playing park football on the weekend,
yeah,
sort
and
of thing.
then I had the opportunity again to play again, and I just took the ride, and I loved it, obviously.
That's amazing to hear. And what was Adelaide like, as in playing for United, the town, the city, and
Yeah,
everything?
I love Adelaide. The club was fantastic. I really had a good time at the club. Great memories, and the city itself. I love Adelaide. It's probably my favorite city in Australia is Adelaide,
Hmm.
and it was really really good time I had there. It was a fantastic time.
That's awesome. And what would like? Obviously, there's very different styles of football around the world. Australia is known to be a very physical, more so than technical. You know, some other sports, some other nations over in Europe are technical more so than physical. So,
Yeah.
what my question is, what is the differences that you've noticed in the A League and Australian football in general compared to the UK and Portugal?
Yeah, like you said, like Australia it's a bit more physical than Europe, Like, and when I say Europe, I say Portugal. England is also physical, so really it's very the similarities to English football, and Australia is very physical.
Hmm.
Um, but compared to Portugal, Portugal is a bit more technical.
Yep.
So that's the biggest difference you find in Australia. Soccer is it's more physical, and that that obviously,
Like you won't be afraid to do a standing tackle and bump someone off in Australian football, sort
yeah,
of thing.
and it's just, yeah, and it's just more running, like, and just kicking and stuff like that, if you compare to
Yep.
some places in Europe.
Yeah, no, that's fair enough. And obviously from Adelaide United, you went to the Central Coast Mariners, which is a big sea change. Obviously, the Central Coast is very different to Adelaide in general, not just the town and the cities. What was it like moving from Adelaide over to the Central Coast?
Yeah, it was great actually. Like at the time, I wasn't really happy in Adelaide anymore, so I had the opportunity to go to the Mariners, and it was great. It was a great decision, and I really enjoyed being at the Mariners the time I was there. From the point of view of the city, the place and the club. It's a very close people
It's a
club.
very community
Very,
club, yeah.
yeah, family club. So I did have a great time at the Mariners.
That's awesome. And then obviously you jetted off to PKNS. What was that like?
Yeah, so then I went to PKNS, like you said, for 6 months. I was there for 6 months in Malaysia. And yeah, to be honest, it was very hard.
Yeah,
Very hard mentally because very completely different of a country and very different culturally. And at the time I was by myself, so it was really hard. I'm not gonna lie, those 6 months I was struggling with being there. So then that's why after 6 months I decided to come back to Australia.
and you came back and you ended up in Sydney FC, which is a rival, obviously, of the Mariners and some other clubs. So that was your third A League club. And what was it like at Sydney?
Yeah, so then I signed for Sydney for the rest of the season. At the time was just a couple of months I stayed there.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Obviously it was good. Sydney is a big club, so it was great. Like, but I wasn't playing that much. Obviously, as a player, you want to play as much as you can.
Yeah,
But taking that aside, obviously, Sydney is a great club to be and experience it.
absolutely. And then you made a massive sea change and went over to the other side of Australia, over to
Yeah.
Perth Glory. What was that like? And yeah, what was the decision behind that as well?
Yeah, so I've been around a fair bit, I guess.
You've literally been around the world.
Yeah, I've been around a fair bit, but yeah, at the time, that's the opportunity that came up, going signing for the Perth Glory,
Mm-hmm.
and yeah, I would not think of going to Perth because yeah, just so far from Sydney and
It really is.
everywhere, really in Australia, it's a fair way to go, but it was good, I was there for 1 year. I enjoyed a lot. Perth is a beautiful city as well, so you know um. I really enjoyed as well, Perth.
Yeah,
There's haven't been a place in Australia that I've been and I didn't enjoy,
yeah.
because everywhere is great and
It's all
people,
good and great for its own
yeah,
specific reasons.
yeah, that's right. So it was also a great opportunity and it was a positive outcome as well.
Yeah, fair. So, like, you'd say probably um, the only sort of one that you've struggled at really would be PKNS, but that was because it's a totally different culture, different
Yeah.
country sort of thing, which is understandable. And so you've spent a bit of time now in the NPL with Adelaide City and currently Sydney Olympic. First of all, how does it compare to the A League? And are you enjoying your footy and that sort of stuff in the NPL?
Yeah, so I've been with them for a few years now with Sydney Olympic, and obviously NPL football is even more physical and than a league. It's
Yeah,
it's really physical and just a big change from the A League.
yeah.
But I'm just enjoying myself being there and trying to help the club, and just obviously keep playing as much as I can, and body is not getting any younger,
No,
so
that's true. So play as much as you can while you
yeah,
can.
so I'll just enjoy myself and try help the club to be good and keep going and hopefully get some wins and trophies with the club.
Yeah, well, fingers crossed. You never know. So now it's to some quick fire questions, not related to sport in the
Yeah.
slightest. First of all, Apple or Android?
Apple.
Absolutely. What's your favorite food?
Pizza.
Oh, okay. What's your favorite toppings on pizza?
Pepperoni.
Yes, yes, very good choice. I was going to say, if you were to say ham and pineapple, ugh.
No.
What's your favorite movie of all time?
The Gladiator.
Oh, great film. What's your favorite music to listen to?
Hip hop.
Hip hop. Okay. Any particular hip hop artist?
I like Chris Brown, Little Baby.
Yep. Yeah, nice. Um, some of those food, movie, music. Apple or Android. Who's the coach's pet at Sydney Olympic?
Who's the coach's pet? Mickey Neal.
Yep, yep, fair enough. And I'm just trying to think because I've got a few more questions, but they're not, but they're more sports related. So the next question would be: so there's coach's pet. Who controls the speaker in the change room?
Oliver Pufflet.
Okay, does he have a good music taste?
He actually does, yes,
Yep.
with the hip hop and the R&B. So yeah,
Yeah,
fits
very
fits the
nice.
criteria.
So I've got two final questions for you. First of all, what or who was the inspiration for behind you to really go for it? Obviously, you moved to Australia and you found a love for it again, but I'm talking way back, like in Portugal days. Who or what was your inspiration?
Back then was Quaresma.
Yep,
Yeah, that
nice.
was my inspiration at the time. He was yeah, he used to be magical back then.
Yep. No, that's amazing. And before I've asked my last question, you played a bit of time for the Portuguese national team
Yeah.
in the youth teams. What was that like being in camp amongst some legends and all that sort of stuff of
Yeah,
in the Portugal youth team?
yeah, obviously it was great, like representing your country and playing with some players that some made it, big, some didn't. But obviously it was a great experience. And as a young player coming through, when you're young and coming through playing for your national team, it's an unbelievable experience.
Absolutely. And obviously I'd be remiss if I didn't ask this, but what are your thoughts on Ronaldo obviously being one of the best Portuguese footballers of all
Yeah,
time?
of course. It was obviously, after Quaresma, then Cristiano Ronaldo started to appear, and back then obviously he started to be, my favorite, and he's been my favorite for a very long time. And
Yep.
obviously now he's getting, a bit older and stuff, and unfortunately one day he'll stop. But it's been one of the greatest.
Oh, absolutely. He's definitely in the conversation for greatest of all time.
Yeah.
My final question is what's next for Fabio Ferreira?
To be honest, I don't know. Just I'm really just see whatever happens. Whatever comes, and at the time when there's something to decide or whatever, I think about it and make a decision. But there's not really anything in mind. Obviously, if I had the opportunity to play again in a league, I would definitely go.
Oh, of course, yeah.
Yeah,
You'd be silly not to.
of course. But it's not. I've got something
Okay,
in my mind.
here's a question. Obviously, you've played for a few clubs, Sydney FC, Perth Glory, etc. What club that you haven't played for yet would you like to play for?
Would you like to play? Wanderers.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
I think that'd suit you very well, yeah.
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, sweet as. Honestly, that's a very good question to finish up with. And I guess, yeah, one last question is what advice would you give to any youngsters who, would love to try and make it as a footballer one day?
Yeah, so I would say just, believe in yourself and give it all you can while you can, because it's a short career. And if you really want it, go get it and just give it all, really.
Yeah, fair. Honestly,